Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Friday edition of Moohead Radio. I'm your host, a big and furry bovine, and for the next hour, you can sit down, relax, and hear about your least favorite sports subjects on Moohead Radio. Joining me on the panel is Brian and the one, the only Stephanie A. Smith, who has strong opinions. I don't know what she has strong opinions. What do you have strong opinions about?
You know, at this point, I don't even know what I have strong opinions about, but we'll see as the show progresses.
All right. Well, as long as you're prepared, I see that you've come prepared. This camera is bothering the hell out of me because it keeps moving around. There you go. That's better. At least my head, I don't look like, God, before I was like,
Hi there, welcome to the program. It's me.
You look like you were sitting in the toddler seat.
yeah, exactly. It's like Lily Tomlin in a rocking chair. That's a reference for people who are older, if you don't remember. Today, one story has literally just lorded over every other subject, and that's this Dolphin 49ers deal. And you can see how interested Topaz is behind me. He's getting ready to go to sleep. Obviously, when you make a deal like this, a number of things kind of come to the fore. First of all, the Dolphins, as oddly cautious as Brian Flores was with Tua at the quarterback position, they've squarely set him up to be the man next year because they got rid of their number 3 pick. They didn't obviously feel that what was there to be had was going to be better than Tua, or they felt that they need to find out what Tua can do when the spotlight is on him for a full season instead of taking him out in every important game that doesn't get off to a really good start for him. They sent their number 3 pick to San Francisco for the number 12 pick, but then the Dolphins traded that to the Philadelphia Eagles. It's all very convoluted and twisted, but what it amounts to, the Dolphins went from 3 to 6, in this year's draft, but also acquired multiple first-round picks as part of what they received. And if you're wondering, Miami also has the number 18 pick in this year's draft. So 6 and 18, they may not be done yet. You look at the number 18 pick, and that is a logical place where maybe the Browns would move up to. So you never know what Miami has up its sleeve. Basically the 3 for 12 downsizing, I guess, by the Dolphins was accompanied by a first and third round pick in 2022 and a first round pick in 2023. And then they sent that number 12 pick, which I didn't keep for long, number 123 in their 2022 first round pick to the Eagles in exchange for the number 6. That's how they got back up to number 6 in the first round and the number 156 pick in this year's draft. And it says as much about the 49ers as it does Miami, because if Tua doesn't really stack up, what we do know at number 6, the Dolphins are most likely going to try to shoot for, a Devontae guy. We're talking about a top line wide receiver to accompany the second-year quarterback. On the other hand, the 49ers are basically saying, Jimmy Garoppolo, ? Oh, yeah, he's our guy, but that's why we traded up to number 3, because you know damn well you don't trade up to number 3 in this year's draft unless you want a quarterback, and that's the future in case the wheels come off of Garoppolo. And I've always felt...
But he's so injury-prone, this has to make sense. I mean,
yes.
You can't roll out this, undrafted free agent guy who's gonna fiddle fuck around and throw interceptions and lose you ball games while Garoppolo is, getting mummified.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I never felt that high about Garoppolo. I thought he was everything was enhanced by being a Patriot. You know what I mean? Everything. If you were an assistant coach for the Patriots, you got
Matt Castle.
yeah, right. I mean, they're
Two fucking 400-yard games, and then what did he do? What did he do as a chief? Nothing.
nothing. I mean, but how many coaches, assistant coaches, and positional coaches left New England to become head coaches somewhere else and failed abysmally. That's one team I would never trade with the Patriots because they had Brady at the time, and they kept their core, and they would keep themselves strong by pimping guys like Garoppolo. But I don't think that he's really, and Rick's pointing out that, he's really only played a full season once. So they're not going to sit around with that for a while. They're going to go up and maybe grab the BYU quarterback or Justin Fields or somebody who will be available at the number 3 position. So it shakes up the league when something like this happens because it changes the order of the draft. And for the Browns' perspective, more significantly, it changes. We know what teams are going to go for some degree. We can almost bet that Miami at 6 is going to go for a wide receiver, somebody who's a game breaker. We also know that the 49ers are going to go for a quarterback. So does this change the Browns any at 24? Probably not, but it does make Miami a possible trading partner if we need to go up to get what we're interested in. And I get the impression that Barry would not be averse to this. The way he's attacked free agency, that he may want to make a splash for somebody who really checks off all the boxes in the first round, rather than watching that player go off the board. So, that's really all I have to say about the trade. It's always big when you see a top 3 pick get moved before the draft. So there will be other smaller moves made, but it's questionable whether there will be any moves made as substantial as this. One of the things I wanted to talk about today is the least surprising thing in the world, and that's that the Cleveland Cavaliers could not trade Andre Drummond. And it's a remarkable thing. And, wait a minute. Hey, look who it is, Brian. It's your girlfriend, Key.
Yeah.
Hi, Key. It's me, Timmy. How you doing?
All right. Well, she'll get it anyway.
Kind of, sort of.
Not from a 9-year-old, anyway. You don't get anything. And the Cleveland Cavaliers shelled out a hell of a lot of money for him. And then when Jared Allen became available, bang, the next thing you know, we've got 3 centers, and you knew that wasn't going to last. And now 2 of them are gone. JaVale McGee traded for a mindless 2023 and 2027 picks. And, of course, Andre Drummond, they did come to terms with him on a buyout, but the team gets nothing for him whatsoever. And we know he's going to the Lakers. And that's the thing that really kills me about the NBA. And it's what separates the NFL from the other leagues. And what incentive is there when teams conspire and they say, well, the Cavaliers are really, 17 and 29, not going anywhere real fast. And, they put their money into this guy, and he is wanted. The Brooklyn Nets want him. The Lakers want him. There's a couple of teams. The Clippers want him. But they're not wanting him so bad that they're going to actually trade something for him. They basically all are sitting back and waiting for the buyout. And this has it ruins it for so many fans, because how do you get out of the doghouse in the NBA? And the answer is you don't. The only way you do is if by some freak of nature your NBA draft lines up so that you get 2 or 3 young superstars like Sam Presti did in Oklahoma for a period of time, or you get a major megastar who happens to grow up in Northeast Ohio to come back to your team, and then all the other players suddenly show up in your backyard. It's hard to take seriously when the vast majority of the teams are like the Cavaliers, and they're going to get nothing for what they have on their roster, so they will never get better through the trade deadline process. Teams never get better. The only way in the NBA that teams get better is A, if they're in a major market, or B, is if by some luck in the draft. All right. And I think that the Cavaliers, Colin Sexton doesn't play any defense and he doesn't like to pass the ball, but he can score the ball. And Darius Garland needs to work on his finishes around the rim, but I think he's a fine young point guard. They're both undersized, though, for the NBA. And I think Jared Allen is a nice center. He's not going to be an all-star, but he's going to be a solid young presence in the post who, as he works on his game, will develop a little bit more range in his game. But, Kevin Love is gone for good. I don't think you're ever going to see him ever again because he's got, that whole screwed up calf thing, the Lonnie Chisenhall disease. And that doesn't go away. He's got some kind of muscular imbalance because of the back issues he's dealing with, and I wouldn't count on him again. Larry Nance Jr., I know that a bunch of teams around the league were asking about Nance Jr., and to be honest with you, he's a nice player, and he would be good for a lot of winning teams because would be a great sixth man off the bench. But as a starting player, he gives his all. He really does. He tries really hard. He does a lot of this and a lot of that. Scoring isn't one of them, but he gets rebounds, he gets assists, he deflects passes, he gets some passing zones, plays defense, he can rebound for his size, and has a three-point shot that he's still working on. But a nice player. The Cavaliers weren't going to trade him. Okoro is a 20-year-old kid who, quite honestly, still looks like the game's moving a little quickly for him, and he is not feeling comfortable just releasing the ball and shooting it. And if you're 6'4" and you're trying to play a 3, which he won't, eventually he'll be playing a 2, but he won't start as long as Sexton and Garland are there, which brings up other questions for the future of the Cavaliers. Okoro has to learn how to shoot the ball better from the perimeter. Athleticism, everybody's got athleticism in the NBA. You got to be able to shoot the rock. That's kind of the way it works. And although they're saying that Kevin Love can cover as much ground as Bradley Zimmer now. And the other good thing is Rosario, the guy they're trying out in center field, only has a forward gear and not a backward reverse gear. So if you ever see him playing shallow in center field, yeah, the ball will just go sailing over his head. He'll still be running in. He has no idea.
But does Kevin Love cover as much real estate as Sean Bradley?
Well, now he does, but how much longer, There could be a bicycle.
For those that didn't hear about this, Sean Bradley was riding his bicycle and was clipped by a car.
And he's paralyzed.
So
he came out of the surgery. You know what the first thing he said was?
Ah, shit! I'm still here.
Nope. Mark. Yeah, he's the new 7'6" Ironside. Yeah, bicycle built for two, literally. Guy 7'6". Well, I didn't see him. I didn't see him in the bike. Yeah, I missed that.
By the way, one of the whitest people, skin tones you will ever see. He literally glows in the dark. So there's no excuse for fucking clipping him.
Yeah, albino Muslim. I mean, or no, what is he? Mormon, that's what he is, yeah.
Mormon, yeah.
His mother's name was Ethel. She sang a lot.
The Mormon.
That's exactly right. Yeah, but but at any rate, getting better in the NBA, no, it doesn't happen. Now, on the other hand, you have football. And anyone who's a Cleveland Browns fan knows. I mean, it's like we're ready for football season and training camp to begin. Well, actually, we're waiting for the draft, and and letting that get done, and then we're just going right into training camp.
I'll say this as when comparing the NFL to all of the other leagues, going all the way back to the first commissioner, parity has always been the big bugaboo, the big buzzword. They've always tried to have more than one team or two teams be the dominant force for a long time. Now, it didn't work so great in the 70s because you had the Raiders, the Cowboys, and the Steelers. But, they have tried very, very hard to keep a competitive balance so that teams can come back. Where in the NBA,
Yeah, I mean, you get lost in the shuffle, and there's so many mid-sized markets. But, I can honestly say, looking back at all the years that the Browns were terrible, it was terrible ownership. I mean, especially once Al Lerner passed away and Randy took the team over, everything went to hell in a handbasket with the organization. Then Randy ran away from the team and moved to England and got involved in soccer overseas, or English football, if you will, Aston Villa and all of that nonsense. And, the infighting between, coaches and general managers and all kinds of scandals. And the Browns were lousy because the Browns were a lousy organization. The same thing can be said about the Jets. Same thing that can be said about the Washington football team. They're lousy organizations. They ended up treating Alex Smith like shit when the guy came off his deathbed to win 5 out of 6 games for him. I mean, shit organization is a shit organization. And I'm not sold on Jimmy Haslam. The best thing I can tell you about Jimmy Haslam is we're not seeing or hearing from him now. And the team's winning. The less we see of him, the less we hear of him. We see that dishonest face, that non-rebate check writing face, the better off we are. And we have some professional looking people in the front office who have a plan. We have a head coach in place who really seems to be in sync with his front office and really seems to sweat out the details. And he's got assistant coaches who stepped up and did a real nice job. We got a fine running backs coach, and Prefer did a wonderful job getting us through a playoff game where the coach was nowhere to be found because of COVID. So it should be no wonder why fans and now the Miami Dolphins, when was the last time the Dolphins had something to really cheer about? And
when Dan Marino was the quarterback.
Right, it's been a long damn time. And, so now they can feel as if they're shaking and moving. And it's not that the Browns didn't have plenty of opportunities to draft their way into a better football team. They just fucked up. They blundered and they didn't do what they were supposed to do. It wasn't because of the way the league was set up. And, you look around the league and yes, the Tampa Bay Bucks, that's a great swan song. They're not going to win the Super Bowl again, folks. You could just put me down for that. You can buy into that, and everyone's come back. Fournette signed his 1-year deal. They're all coming back, and it's the little curtain call for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I have nothing against the Buccaneers. I'm glad that they won. Tampa Bay is a mid-sized market, and that's good for football. It's good for sports. It's good for the fans. But it can't go on forever. There are other teams getting better quickly, and that is what makes the NFL. That's why when we do talk shows like this and do podcasts, if I'm not talking about the Cleveland Browns, the viewership is like, because nobody wants to hear about NBA basketball where you can't get better and Major League Baseball where the owner is hell-bent to spend as little money as possible, Oh, look at your man here. What do you have to say here, Stephanie?
Hello, Joe Shipley. It hurt my
I didn't wake you up, did I?
I may have been just a little bit distracted.
The cat took over the laser pointer.
Oh, make it stop. Go ahead. Advance the piranha. Go ahead, Stephanie.
Now, Joe Shipley, aren't you glad you logged in for that?
She was
Joe saw what I saw. She was napping. Her eyes were getting heavy. I swear to God, I saw the same thing. Stephanie A. Smith.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm active and alert. And I have some very strong opinions that I will express later.
Okay, Joe Biden.
Later's a big word. Joe, love you too, man. And best of wishes to you, Baltimore Oriole. You. All right, that's yeah.
But Joe is a genuine sports fan because it's not just about the Ravens or
right. He's not. Yeah, he's not crashing the party. Yeah. I hate people who do that.
He'll suck it up and root for the Orioles, even though they're, the best thing about him is Camden Yards.
Yeah, I love RealCavsFans.com, and Ben over there has been a buddy of mine for a long time. But I got to tell you honestly, I got so pissed off when LeBron left, became Lakers fans, and they just blazed off of that site for a period of time. It was like, you've got to be kidding me. But
a lot of that, but that happened when he was with the Heat and they finally won a championship.
Yeah,
same thing happened. So,
and Rick's aware of it, just like I'm aware of it. The Indians can't get better because the owner just doesn't want to spend any money. All right. Dan Gilbert, when he ran the team, and that's another thing with the Cavaliers that's real troublesome, is that his young son is behind the scenes pulling the strings. And I feel badly because everybody who's watched this program knows that Dan Gilbert may not have been my favorite owner of all time because of writing letters at midnight and things of that nature. But nobody could question his investment in the team and his desire to put a winning product on the floor. Nobody can question that. Now, I don't know who's running the ship, to be very honest with you. And I feel bad for JB Bickerstaff because, he's part of the rotating carousel of coaches who are interim coaches or short-term coaches. And it's very difficult to get things done. And he's fighting, the fact that he never had Kevin Love to play, which would have helped the team. The Cavaliers are only 2.5 games out of the number 10 position, technically, to make the playoffs. But you just feel that 2.5 games might as well be 12.5 because the hill's too steep to climb. If they'd have had Kevin Love, who was healthy, that would be a different story. It would add 20 points and 10 rebounds every single game. And he hasn't had that to work with. And instead, he has no backup point guard. He's got Quinn fucking Cook, and he's got Damian Dotson, and he's got people who don't really play at this level. It's hard to win without a backup point guard, and you can't burn out Sexton, and you can't burn out your point guard, Garland. They're not going to win either of them, but for different reasons. The Cavaliers at least have some young talent. The Cleveland Indians have no talent whatsoever. And that's the final part of the troika of sports in Cleveland, is this pathetic situation going on in spring training in Goodyear, which makes it a bad year. Brian Shaw is back pitching the Indians. The last thing I saw of Brian Shaw, he was the human form of the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. I mean, he went away and he was not to be seen again. And now he's made the team in the bullpen. And now Francona says, I think we're going to have a closer, but
By
not,
committee.
Go ahead.
Closer by committee.
Closer by committee, which means you don't have anybody you have any fucking confidence in who's good enough to get the job done. And it's not like you had such a great guy last year whose fastball had dropped 4 miles an hour. You don't even have anybody. Karinchak can't consistently throw strikes. You can't put him in consistently in the 9th inning and have him walk the bases loaded. You can't have that happen. Emmanuel
Hey, is Jose Mesa still available?
Emmanuel
Let's bring him back too.
Yeah, Joe Cable. Emmanuel Clace can throw the ball 100 miles an hour, but God knows where it's going. And then we have Whitgren, who's 1 year older and is really a setup guy and not a closer. And we have no center fielder. How is that possible? How can you not have a center fielder? That you're trying out a second baseman in center field who doesn't know what the hell he's doing out there. I don't understand it, but the Indians aren't trying to win. They're just putting garbage out onto the field, hot garbage. And again, they still haven't decided on first base. And if Jake Bauers, I'm telling you, if Jake Bauers is the opening day first baseman for the Indians, I ain't talking about him all year because had enough of it. I mean, there's a guy who's been in the fucking league for 4 years. He's been in the major league for 4 years. The guy is hitting 214 over 4 fucking years. And they keep dredging him up as being a high prospect. And it's just got Russell Branyan written all over it, except Branyan could legitimately hit 30 home runs, but he would strike out every 3 at-bats. Bauers doesn't give you the power. It doesn't give you the RBI potential. He just sucks. And he's an average first baseman. Then you got Bradley, the guy trying out for the position, and they use the same shit against him that they used against Jesus Aguilar. Well, he's not a very good defensive first baseman. Well, you know something? There's nothing really good about the Indians, period. Their starting pitching is not going to be what it was because we've got rid of all of them. And so that I think our salary now, where are we at about 50, 55 million? I mean, it's embarrassing when other teams are above $200 million and the Indians are just waffling around. It's depressing. It's depressing the way sports just, and baseball is the most blatant of the bunch because they just allow New York and Los Angeles just to whatever they want, spend as much money as they want. Their advertising revenue is 5 times greater than, 10 times greater than what a mid-sized market would be. You have Yes Network in New York and all that kind of stuff that with the population and the advertising rates that, Cleveland. I mean,
greatest Indian. I don't know about that, Joe.
Well,
he's asking about Sandy Alomar.
Yeah, well, no, Cleveland advertising is still Saul Bergman Jewelers. I'm giving you these gems from Old North. At Saul Bergman Jewelers. USA and a C. Miller Chevrolet. That's what you get on Cleveland television, Hi, Jimmy Dudley. Vinyl is final. Yeah. Vinyl siding, the thing that you need. Is Sandy Alomar Jr. the greatest Indian? No, Sitting Bull.
Hey, now.
I haven't even brought up Hollywood yet. So, no, Sandy Alomar Jr. is not the greatest Indian. Sandy Alomar had a wonderful year. The guy where he hit 21 home runs and he hit a home run in the All-Star game. Tremendous defensive catcher and line drive, not a power hitter, line drive hitter, gap hitter. But boy, he had to fight bad knees. he had a tougher career because catchers get dinged up, and he definitely got dinged up. But a great guy, great team player, and for the time that he played in Cleveland, was the perfect catcher. He was the perfect guy that you wanted because you didn't need to have Johnny Bench, power and production, RBI wise and home run wise from your catcher when you had that murderous lineup that the Cleveland Indians had then.
Rick May's greatest Indian would have been Gandhi.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I've got to agree with you. Yeah.
What about Gunga Din?
Yeah, I mean,
they still use his joke.
Sandy Alomar Jr. didn't have a movie named after him, and Ben Kingsley never played him. So, and Dakhtar is
I think Ben is only tall enough to play Robbie. Actually,
what was the company, Dakhtar? Garfield 1 2 3 2 3. Garfield 1 2 3 2 3. You remember? I don't remember what it was.
The Higbees song?
No, I don't even know what the hell Higbees. I remember Hallie's Second Floor is where the pervert Mr. Jingling was.
Well, that's the next line.
Yeah. So the Dakhtar.
Hey, you gutters.
There's a Superhost. All right, yeah. Yeah. So at any rate, that's baseball can never be fair because teams keep what's theirs. They don't share. And because of that, if you're in New York or Los Angeles, you just get more of the pie, you can spend more of it. And if you're the Rays and the Indians and the Pirates and the Brewers, you just you get Jesus Aguilar. And if you get one good year where he hits 35 home runs, God bless you. You scored it big. It didn't make any difference because the Brewers didn't get very far. That's what baseball is, and it's going to be in 100. How many games are they playing this year in baseball?
It's going to be more than 120.
135? Is that what it is? I know that Rick would know and Rick May, you are right. Garfield 1 2 3 2 3 was a flooring or carpet company. Yeah, I don't remember which one it was. Yeah, but Rick would know. Rick would know how many games they're actually playing this year. So whatever it is, it'll be proportionate to a 100-loss season. And, that's what makes sports what they are. And that's why we're all waiting for football season. And we all want to talk about it all the time because now we're waiting to see who we draft. And, nobody wants to be bothered with the day-to-day rigmarole. The Cavaliers won their last game. That's wonderful. They're not going to win the next one against the Lakers. And even if LeBron's not there and even if AD's not there, and LeBron is hurt, and he's seriously hurt that he's going to be gone, finally a high ankle sprain that did him in. And, you never know where the chain breaks with a player of his age. But this gives the league plenty of opportunity now as the Brooklyn Nets now become the favorites with the NBA championship, right in time for Kyrie Irving to take 3 games off because of, quote, family problems.
Well, and let's not forget that LeBron, with all of the games that he's played, including Olympics and postseasons and everything else, his body is actually that of like a 40-year-old or a 42-year-old.
Yeah. Now, Dakhtar, I grew up in Canton. Back in the day, the 216 area code. Before there was all that 330 shit. 216-456-1212. That was the time and temperature number in Canton, Ohio. I can tell you that I grew up at 3311 North Market Avenue, Market Heights, Canton, Ohio. I have incredible memories of Northeast Ohio. Yeah, I don't know why I remember that. My home phone number was area code 216-492-5617. These things never go away. So,
I'm
yeah,
call that number and ask for you.
Yeah, maybe I should. Yeah, but I mean, it's amazing when you stop and think about it. People used to call on a cell phone and find out what fucking time it was. Now we have cell phones that will tell us what time it is. And Rick is responding and saying it's going to be a full 162. All teams will be playing on April the 1st. Well, and then it will be an 100 loss season. I can guarantee you that. Here's a story that really it bothers me. All right. And I lean two different ways. And I know Stephanie A. Smith is going to have a strong opinion about this story. Although the NCAA Division I men's basketball championship budget for the 2018-2019 season was $28 million, almost as much as the women's budget, information provided by the NCAA on Friday, also shows the men's tournament brought in a total net income of $864.6 million that season. All right. What they're complaining about is that the NCAA budget for men's basketball, the tournament, was twice as much as women's basketball tournament. Now I'm going to give you the rest of the story. While the men's NCAA tournament brought in a total net income of $864.6 million in 2018-2019, the women's tournament lost $2.8 million, the largest loss of any NCAA championship. Now, I'm going to go right over to Stephanie A. Smith because, I mean, realistically, you have any damn interest in women's basketball, Stephanie?
You know, it's been a long damn time since I watched a women's basketball game. I mean, the first thing that strikes me, though, is the disparity between the pay for or the budget for the men's and the women's sports. And I was looking at an article the other day talking about just the difference in pay between female athletes and male athletes. But by the same token, if they're not bringing in the viewership, how are they going to get that same pay? What's the justification for that? Those are my thoughts.
Brian, oh, nice. Strike a pose. There's nothing to it. All right, Brian.
And that's the thing, you know. They Rapinoe is still droning on and on about, well, we need equal pay. Well, if you go by the percentage of what the revenue that they're generating, they're actually making way more than the men's teams. So for U.S. soccer, so you know, if you're losing money with the same budget, how can you
justify? I mean, it's tough because it's like the WNBA. I mean, I understand. I'm a firm believer that a woman should be able to make a living playing professional basketball. But the reality is people aren't watching it. And it never gets any coverage at all on the national sports scene because nobody's watching it. And how much money can a women's basketball player make? Well, a hell of a lot less than a man can. But, you know, again, it comes down to the marketability of the product. And I have watched stretches of women's basketball, and it's just incredibly inferior to men's basketball as a product. Women are not as fast. They don't jump as high. It's not as athletic. And it is more, it has picked up in its athleticism over the course of the last 15 years. It used to be a station-to-station game, and now there's a lot more speed and athleticism involved, but it can't compare. And the NBA continues to support the WNBA, and it's, you know, I was talking to Stephanie A. Smith the other day, and we were talking about this Miles Leonard character who used to play for the Heat, who uttered an anti-Semitic slur while playing a video game that got captured on video and broadcast to the world via social media. And the Heat responded to his calling his opponent a kike bitch by fining him $50,000 and suspending him for a week. And if you watched last week's program, you'll remember the story. And it was like, God, that's just a slap on the wrist compared to if something else would have been said. Well, the story wasn't over. The Miami Heat traded Miles Leonard, and I forget what team they traded him to, but that team turned around and let him go. Now he's unemployed. So somewhere between truth and fiction, you know, I mean, Miles Leonard deserved more than a slap on the wrist, but he doesn't deserve to be not allowed to make a living. And this is coming from a guy who grew up Jewish. I mean, it's like that was a horrible thing to say, but my goodness, he's out of the league now. And he was due to make $10 million this coming year with the Heat. So it's not like he was a player who was not at all well thought of. So it's crazy. And the women's basketball thing, it's the same thing. It's a sensibility that we all have that women should have the opportunity to grow up to be athletes, not just as tennis players, not just as gymnasts, not just as track and field people, but there are other sports as well, boxers and MMA and all kinds of things. And, you know, and occasionally there's a Ronda Rousey, who really wasn't very good, it turns out, who captures the imagination of marketability and can clean up with endorsements. She's long gone, of course. And the Amanda Nunez's and the people who are more proficient at mixed martial arts are the ones who are still toiling.
Oh, Gina Carano's another good example.
Yeah, I mean, there's it's a marketing game, and it always has been. And, you know, I see the discussion of who is the greatest Indian of all time. And, you know, so much of it, personalities. I mean,
Joe Carter was pretty good as an Indian, but he didn't win a World Series until he went to Toronto.
That's right. I mean, and he's a good ball player, but he wasn't a superstar. I mean, Albert Bell was as talented a hitter as any in the league, but, you know, he was troubled, firing baseballs at fans' chests in the stands. You know, Kenny Lofton was the straw that stirred the drink. That was what he was known as. And hell
of a point guard too, by the way.
Yeah, I think his arrogance and confidence, really, that was the swag of that Indians team, you know, and he personified that swag. Corey Kluber was the best pitcher, all right? And I know Louis Tiant had a remarkable year with the Indians, and he had some good seasons. I know we've had Gaylord Perry won the Cy Young, but for my money, Corey Kluber is the greatest pitcher I saw in Cleveland. And, and everyone, you know, eventually there comes a time when their skills fade. But as far as like the greatest, you know, and the people say Jim Thome because that statue got built, and, you know, it's like Jim Thome went to the White Sox, you know, to the Twins. I don't know. I think that a large part of that had to do that he was white, bright, and polite. I personally suspected that he was on steroids, to be very honest with you. And he said, no, I'm not going to call him a liar, but I'm just using my eyes, and I could see that. And his best buddy was Mark McGwire. In the offseason, they spent their summers fishing together. And the fact that both of them were pulling out 500-pound marlin by themselves out of the ocean would tend to make me believe that they were both utilizing steroids. I don't consider...
And only using their bats, too.
Jim Thome was not as good a hitter as Albert Bell. Albert Bell was a more disciplined hitter, hit for a better average, and hit more home runs. But he was not Mr. Good Guy, well-liked. And Jim Thome was a likable guy who, fans liked him. So, It's always tough to say who's the best, the best Indians third baseman, Bubba Phillips or Max Elvis. Isn't that the truth? Third baseman, who do we got? The guy from Arizona for a short, Matt Williams. He was
Brooke Jacoby was pretty damn good.
Yeah, he ran like a penguin. Brooke Jacoby. He wasn't a bad
Well, but he was a good fielder.
Yeah, I mean, but yeah.
They had Matt Williams for a little while.
Matt Williams made his career somewhere else, but he was a fine ball player. Very fine ball player.
In fact, he came to the Indians in the middle of his divorce.
Right, and Jose Ramirez, best, and he's not a third baseman; he's a second baseman, and we've moved him around because the organization was too cheap to get a third baseman. Let's be honest, Joe. Jose Ramirez is second baseman, and as a second baseman, he's not nearly as good as the other.
I would say Robbie Alomar
Robbie Alomar was a far superior second baseman, but Jose Ramirez is a very streaky guy who gets very hot and cold, but he can whack the ball. He sometimes falls in love with an uppercut swing and wants to be a bigger power hitter than he needs to be. But I'd say that Robbie Alomar was the best second baseman. The best first baseman. Wow. I have no idea.
Well, if you're talking about the career, then I would say Eddie Murray.
Paul Sorrento. Yeah, Eddie Murray, career-wise, yeah, but he came to Cleveland late as well. So,
and then they had Keith Hernandez at the very end.
And Amsterdam is right. Buddy Bell was considered a really good third baseman for the Indians during the lost years. Right? Terrible manager, but a really good third baseman. So,
well, see, and I remember Buddy Bell being on a different team.
Right. Then,
I don't remember him as an Indian. So,
and Rick brings up a name in Vic Power that I wouldn't have even have come up with, and yeah, that would be a possibility. Andre Thornton was loved in Cleveland, it's funny because Andre Thornton may have been so much more. They pitched around him, and he still would hit 30 home runs in a season. Imagine if he had anybody hitting around him in the lineup. But Thornton was when they get him out of like Montreal or somewhere, and they never played him, and he became a really good player for the Indians. Sometimes it works out that way. And Joe is telling us that the Ravens have worked out a 1-year deal with Sammy underachiever Watkins. Sammy Watkins coming out of Clemson was like the hottest thing on the market, I remember, but he didn't have enough vertical speed. And Sammy Watkins is an overpriced, or was an overpriced possession receiver. And perfectly fine receiver, nothing wrong with him, but he came out of college being hyped because he was out of Clemson, and he didn't have the downfield ability that really teams needed from a big play guy. And he's been hurt quite a bit in his career too, Sammy Watkins. So,
played his way out of every team he was on.
Yeah, he's played with a lot of teams, and I remember everybody was saying that was the wide receiver. He was the top receiver on everybody's, list. And
well, and you wonder how much of it is Deshaun Watson or playing in the ACC.
Well, yeah,
when you look at his stats and that kind of thing.
The great ones are like Jerry Rice. You go to Mississippi Valley State. It doesn't matter where the hell you go. He could catch everything, and he was fast, and he could run a pattern. And my God, it didn't matter where he played, where he came from. When he hit the NFL, he was great. You can tell that some of these guys like Megatron, the guys who come in through the draft, who were just physically superior players, you know, and to be honest with you, Joe, the Ravens are standing still in time. They're not getting worse, but they're not getting better. And that's a scary thing because the Steelers are not getting better. The Bengals are getting better, assuming Burrow is healthy, and the Browns are getting better, flat out getting better, and better cohesiveness. And we're adding players, but we're not adding players willy-nilly. We're targeting people, and hopefully, if we can come up with a hell of a 26th pick or move up, or 24th pick, and move up. No, we're 26, aren't we?
Yeah, 26.
26, yeah, move up, and get that special player that you're looking for. I could see the Browns being a consistent 11-5, 12-14. And that's going to be good enough to win their division. It's going to be good enough to get them into the playoffs. It's going to be good enough to be one of the top 2-3 teams in the AFC. And fortunes rise and fall with quarterbacks' health. Something happens to Mahomes, the Chiefs aren't going to be nearly as good. Something happens to Baker, the Browns aren't going to be nearly as good. And something happens to Lamar Jackson, God help your soul, Joe. God help your soul. Something like that happens. And with Roethlisberger, they're just, talking about the ultimate one-year deal kind of thing. They just want him to last out through the season. And his offensive line is not as good as it was, and they still don't have a running back there. So, yeah, there's going to be opportunity for them to get better too. So over time, I love this headline. Here are some of the Cleveland Indians who created wow moments in spring training. Is there such a thing?
Well, I still would have liked to have seen them play, though.
Yeah,
I wasn't able to get out there to watch. So
their number one wow is Andres Gimenez winning the shortstop job by hitting 282 in spring.
So that's going to be about $189 in the regular season.
And yeah, and how long are fans going to put up with that, knowing that he's replacing Francisco Lindor? And Logan Allen, the lefty. Oh, he looks great in spring training. We'll see what happens, when the regular season begins. They're saying Ahmed Rosario's, horrible nightmare in center field is a wow moment, but it's more of a wow moment because what in the fuck is the organization doing? Letting a Rule 5 right-hander Trevor Stephan, win a job in the bullpen tells you how shallow you are in the bullpen. Then we have a guy who can throw 100 miles an hour who is coming off a season where he was dissed by the league for taking performance-enhancing drugs. And then Karinchak, who makes Paul Shuey look economical with the number of pitches that he throws. Daniel Johnson is a wow moment who got optioned to Class AAA, even though he did everything that could be asked of him, hitting a 368 in spring training. They just decided, even though they needed help in center field, they never gave Johnson a chance to play in center field. And, I've seen this play out before. If you remember Michael Brantley, I remember when Brantley came to the Indians, nobody thought that this guy was going to be a perennial 300 hitter. Nobody believed that. He was just a guy who had very little pop in his bat and was maybe a 250, 260 hitter when he first came to Cleveland. You got to give a guy like Daniel Johnson a chance when you have nobody. When you're putting a second baseman in center field, you got to give him an opportunity.
Hell, give Jeremiah Johnson a chance.
Yeah, then everybody Yu Chang tonight. This guy's only hitting a 250 in spring. you know, he hit 4 home runs. Big deal. The ball carries out there. What do you want me to tell you? It changes in the regular season because they know how to pitch it. You're facing a bunch of people trying to make a roster in spring training. It's foolishness. You know, and I really don't care about how much weight Roberto Perez lost. I mean, he's still a dud with a bat in his hands. And he's a very fine defensive catcher. But do you realize that we have 2 catchers who potentially hit below the Mendoza line? Is that amazing? Austin Hedges, can you imagine that guy hit 198 last year? That's beyond anemic.
Yeah, especially in today's game.
And then, get this. Shaw, who we were talking about, Brian Shaw, the relief pitcher, is 33 years old now. He says he wants to pitch long enough to break Jesse Orosco's record for appearances at 1,252, but Shaw only has 612. Lots of luck. I want a relief pitcher who's going to get people out. I don't care about how many appearances in your career. Yeah. And we had the Naylor brothers, Josh, who made the team, Bo, who didn't. Bo's a catcher. And you know how bad that is if you can't displace the 198 career hitting Austin Hedges.
Isn't that the guy they got from the Padres?
Yeah, the guy can't hit at all. I mean, that's what allowed, allegedly, who was the kid that we let go, who's never amounted to anything? Who was the catcher that couldn't speak English very well, they said. Help me, Rick. Help me. He was the guy who was the big 300 hitter in the minor leagues. And when he came up to the big leagues, he looked awfully small. And people immediately started saying, we got to find another position for him. And he never hit. And we traded him to the Padres in the Austin Hedges deal. He got hurt in San Diego, and he's never amounted to a damn thing. Remind me who it is in the chat room. They come and they go, and it's just like the guy we got rid of to the Rays. The guy, what was his name? Boy, Yandy Diaz. Yandy Diaz looked like he was for sure, 15 home run a year, 70 run batted in, third baseman that we got rid of for no reason. And since he's gotten to Tampa, he started out playing real well, but then he got hurt, and he's been just one injury after another. And if you remember, he was the guy with that Herculean body, and he's been hurt nonstop. So I think somewhere Rick is definitively Googling to find out what the name of that player was, he was playing catcher, and he was displaced by another player in San Diego. Oh, yeah, Mejia. There, good. Yeah, he never amounted to nothing. So you never know. You never know with players. But I know that if you're not willing to pay players, you're not going to get good players. It's just not going to work that way. And this I'll leave for Brian. Because I think, Major League Baseball, Players Association chief is open to talk with Major League Baseball about moving the All-Star game out of Georgia because of the new voting laws that they've pushed through. If you haven't been paying attention, butthurt Georgia, the Republicans in the state who lost everything, including their advantage in the House of Representatives and in the Senate, thanks to, and the presidential election.
Officer Barberry, shenanigans.
Well, there are people who believe that, but what I believe is that all of this.
Come on, they fucking quit the thing because there was a leaky pipe in some fucking bathroom, and then all of a sudden Joe Biden's ahead. Oh, it's a miracle.
Well, nobody questioned when the same thing happened in Pennsylvania in 2016. The thing that's remarkable, votes come in from different parts of the states at different times, and nobody even had Donald Trump on the map as far as in Pennsylvania and in Wisconsin and in Michigan. But the fact of the matter is, he obviously took money from foreign country, and that would be Russia. And I'm not going to tell you that other politicians of both parties are definitely aligned. That would be a good word, aligned with certain countries. And you can see.
Well, Hillary Clinton robbed Haiti blind, so there's that.
I think all politicians, it's all about however they can raise money in order to win. But this whole idea of moving the All-Star game out of Georgia, I wanted to ask you, Brian, is the last thing on the show. What do you think of that?
Trying to use sports to make that much of a political statement, it's one thing if it's individual people saying whatever or asked about whatever. But when a league does that, they wanted to do the same thing down here with over Sheriff Joe and his rounding up of illegal immigrants or border crossers. So, to me, it kind of shits on the whole spirit of what it's supposed to be, which is just a fun game for the fans and a fun fan experience for that whole week. So I don't know. They're going to do whatever they can do and try and score woke points. And it's like, you know what? Fuck woke culture.
No, I'll tell you one thing. What woke up were voters who showed up. It's going to be very interesting in the future to see. And I can see where suppression tactics are a smart move by the Republicans, because they've got to do what they can to keep the swelling number of young woke Democrats. And when I say
and they want to, they want to allow 16-year-olds to vote. They want to fucking do all this other. They're bringing in millions and millions of illegals.
No question.
And giving them fucking giving them IDs and giving them free fucking voter registration, but primarily, 99% Democrat. So, they're doing all.
Both sides are doing what they can. One side to kind of limit that damage, and the other is to swell the base of younger ethnic voters who tend to vote Democratic.
But we have voter ID rules here, and but it can work, but it's got to be a really enforced thing. It can't just be, we're.
But not giving water to people in line who have waited for hours to vote. I mean, when you add language like that,
there's
inflation. It's like, ouch.
Well, see, this might irk some people, but we had early voting here, and it was great. We could show up, we could vote. The polling station had a separate line for all the people dropping off their written ballots, and it took 35 minutes for myself and my mother to go through the whole thing. We drove together. We wore a mask. We went through the whole process, and our votes got counted. I don't know if they got counted correctly. I don't know if they got counted willy-nilly. But
we've never known that.
Now the goddamn state house is going through and recounting 2.1 million ballots. Well, what the fuck good does that do in March when the election was in November? And everybody's already been sworn into office anyway.
Well, I really do think the polls were swamped by people. I think that the voting came in because the pandemic changed a lot of things in the way the election went down, and it may have been easier in one regard for people not to actually have to leave their house in order to vote, and not to wait in line for long periods of time. Oh, by the way, Rick, it's Francisco Mejia. Last year, 2020. 39 big league at bats, 3 hits for a .077 average in his career. Okay. Let's take a look.
Benson and Hedges. Hey, they used to sponsor race teams.
The best year he had was his first one, 2019 in San Diego, with 244 plate appearances, and he hit 8 home runs and hit a .265. But after that, his playing time just went away. And, again, just because somebody looks good in the minors, but Daniel Johnson is somebody who deserved a better look than what he got. And it's unfortunate. Well, at any rate, anything that you want to say before we get out of here, Stephanie? We're still waiting for a strong opinion.
Yeah, I was just really glad that I was not triggered during all that voting talk. I'm proud of myself for that, and that is my strong opinion for the evening.
Now, did you get to vote in person?
I did not vote in person, no.
Okay.
Yeah, and I did not.
Were you still registered in the other state?
I was still registered in Oklahoma, yes.
So you voted absentee?
I voted absentee.
Okay.
And I voted, dropped it in the box, and believe me, this is a Republican county, and they hid that motherfucking box. I had to ask 3 people where in the hell it was, and it was kind of
see that kind of stuff is kind of horseshit to me. It's
really too. Like, where do you put your the ballot in? And it was pointing to something, and it had been moved, and there was definitely shenanigans, and I'm sure there's shenanigans on both sides.
And that's what I liked about the polling. The early polling places had their box right by the exit door, so the line just could go right straight through, and it took out. There were over 100 people in line waiting to get in, but 80 of them had their ballots in their hands. So they just hit the box and went right on out and right on their way. So.
Yeah. I mean, it could have been so much more efficient, but we'll see if they do any better. Have you been vaccinated?
I hope that the early voting in person remains a thing, though, because that's just so much easier. Because we didn't have to hunt around for where our actual polling place is, because it rotates every time now. So, and shout out to Key. Thanks for stopping by.
Yeah, Key, thanks for stopping by. And
thanks for stopping by, Key. The sun will come out tomorrow. There'll be sun.
Just thinking about tomorrow clears away the cobwebs and the sorrows.
Annie, as sung by Tom Waits. Oh boy.
Okay.
All right, everybody, have a pleasant weekend, and we'll be back at you on Monday. And Stephanie will have more incredible insights. Until then, hasta la vista, Pastor Heads. Good night.